Well, hello everyone, and welcome in for another episode of Court Hopping. Today we're going to head over to DeKalb County, Georgia. The first case is a real quick one. The second case is going to take quite some time. It's like a little mini hearing. I think it's bond revocation is what it ends up being, but I found it to be really interesting. And not just because of, well, the case itself is interesting. It does deal with domestic violence. So that's just to give you guys a content warning right then and there. But what's interesting about it is what exactly this gentleman did to this woman. But again, the way she acts when she comes in to testify against him will blow your mind. It just, I don't know if she's scared of him. I don't know if she's needs him out because maybe he brings in some money for the house. I don't know what it is. But you guys watch along with me and we'll chat while we go and let me know what you think.
Your Honor, we're ready. Ms. Hill.
Hill and Judge Powers.
All right, let me hit close. All right, what's the agreement in Hill or the announcement in Hill?
Ms. Hill is going to stipulate.
It's going to be a full step.
Stipulation. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Hill. You're here this morning for petition for violation of your probation. For the purposes of this hearing, is she waiving her right to be in my physical presence?
She is, Your Honor.
All right. And it's a full step, so I'll ask the state to please first place the violations on the record.
Yes, the state will be waiving the criminal law violations for the purposes of this hearing. Ms. Hill has violated the terms and conditions of probation in the following particulars. She's failed to pay as ordered, and that the defendant is currently $3,381 in arrears, with $1,173 with unpaid restitution in arrears, making only a payment of $40 on December the 4th of 2018. There's also a violation of special conditions to provide proof of employment, and that the defendant has failed to show proof of said employment.
Is that your understanding of stipulations to violation?
Ma'am.
Is that your understanding as to the stipulations to violation, Ms. Thurman?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll find by preponderance of the evidence that she has violated her probation. What is the state's recommendation?
The state's recommendation is to revoke 120 days to the Clayton County Jail and close the case.
All right, anything further on behalf of your client, Ms. Thurman?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I will revoke 120 days to serve, and then that case will close. You can go back.
Come on, Ms. Hill.
All right, what's the announcement in Miranda forehand?
I do need a breakout room to communicate her offer from the DLP.
Just so you guys know, I've tried to trim those down as much as possible for you guys.
All right,
Who was that, Judge Powers?
Miranda forehand.
Forehand?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, the days of Zoom when our animals were running wild in our home and everyone got to know and meet them.
On the floorboard had a bag of methamphetamine. Was found to have 3 passengers.
Guilty or not guilty to the charges?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, if you signed a document here this morning indicating you intend to plead, or have you signed a document, maybe not this morning, indicating you intend to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go over that document with your lawyer before you signed it?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she explain to you the nature of the charges pending, all of your statutory and constitutional rights that apply to your case, the potential range of punishment for these offenses, and the consequences of you pleading here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you satisfied that you fully and completely understand each matter as it applies to your case?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Thurman, did you go over the police statement with your client?
I did, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied that she fully and completely understands each matter as it applies to her case?
I do, Your Honor.
Do you know of any reason why she should not accept her plea?
No.
Ma'am, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you intend to plead?
Guilty.
Has anyone threatened you or coerced you in any manner to force you to plead guilty against your wishes?
No, ma'am.
As you stand here today, are you under the influence of any type of intoxicant?
No, ma'am.
Will the state please provide a factual basis?
Yes, Your Honor. Should this case have gone to trial, the state would expect the evidence to show that on or about September 3rd, 2019, the defendant was driving her car and was stopped for a tag light violation in Clayton County at the intersection of Terra Boulevard and Battle Creek. The defendant was found to have 3 passengers in her car, one of them with a warrant. The officers observed a glass pipe with the backseat passenger that they found to have residue of methamphetamine in it after field test. The front passenger on the floorboard had a bag of methamphetamine as well. On the front passenger was a sawed-off rifle. The defendant is on probation as a first offender, Your Honor. The recommendation is 5 years. This is solely for the purposes of the plea. The recommendation from Fast Track went to 5 years of probation to be completed. DRC, the drug and alcohol evaluation and treatment if deemed necessary, submission to random drug screens, and a waiver of Fourth Amendment right to search and seizure, as well as attorney fees and probation fees, Your Honor. Thank you.
Is that your understanding of the state's recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I will accept your plea. Anything further on behalf of your client?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be 5 years probation, Clayton Day Reporting Center, 4A waiver, attorney's fees, probation fees. You have 4 years from today's date to file a habeas corpus petition in this matter. What's the announcement in the violation of probation?
She's doing a full step.
All right, so the state will please place that on the record.
I am not in receipt of the VOP. I will ask Officer Stanley if she can do that.
Sure. Judge, you ready?
Yes.
On about September 3rd, 2019, the defendant committed the offenses in which he just pled to, which is the possession of methamphetamine and the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The state will be withdrawing the charges that was null processed on her petition, which is the possession of the sawed-off shotgun, sawed-off rifle, machine gun, a dangerous weapon, or silencer. Failure to pay is ordered. The defendant is currently $2,056 in arrears on court-ordered monies. Her last payment of $97 was provided on August 21st, 2019. Violation of special conditions to complete an anger management program. The defendant has failed to provide proof of enrollment or completion and/or anger management, and she's also violated the special condition to submit to HIV testing. She's failed to provide proof of HIV testing, Judge. She has 1 year, 2 years, 9 months, 7 days defender sentence, Judge. Recommendation is that she be adjudicated guilty, 2 years to serve in the state penal system in case closed.
All right. Is that your understanding as to the stipulation?
That is, Your Honor.
Okay, including the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. I will adjudicate her, find by preponderance of the evidence then that she's violated her probation, adjudicate her guilty, sentence her to 2 years to serve, and then her case will close in that matter. All right, she can go back. Well, actually, she needs to hold for Ms. Hardy. That's another one. She and Ms. Baird both need to hold up here for Ms. Hardy. So,
Ms. Forehand had a question.
yes.
About the 2 years. I've been in Clayton County for 13 months. I know I probably should have asked my attorney about this whole situation.
The sheriff will calculate that, and the Department of Corrections will calculate your time that you've served as you're allowed to. I'm not allowed to make that calculation.
So I'm asking,
Judge, that's up to the Department of Corrections.
this time
I'm sorry?
asking to be sentenced to months instead of years. That way my inmate worker time can count.
No, I've adjudicated you guilty for 2 years.
Okay.
All right. Anything further?
No, thank you.
All right. If she'll just hold up here for that. What's the announcement? And I mean, she doesn't have to be right here, but as long as she and Ms. Baird are up, so when I call them back to be able to speak to probation. What's the announcement in Smith?
Your Honor, that is a hearing.
On the case,
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Ms. Jansen?
I was letting you know my case.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
It'll be a hearing, Your Honor.
Okay. How many witnesses do you have, Ms. Jansen?
If there's no stipulation to the foundation on the 911 call, we have 5 witnesses, Your Honor. And we have sent the 911 call to both the defense counsel, probation officer, and to the court ahead of time. so that there are not any unforeseen technical difficulties. We've also sent to the court the jail phone calls, as well as the certification, since those are self-authenticating.
Is there going to be a step to the, phone calls, Ms. Reddick?
In light of who my client is, Your Honor, no, I cannot. We have to go through all the formalities, Judge.
Okay, all right. Are all your, I know it's a 10 a.m. calendar. Are all your witnesses on the call or ready to go?
They can't be because of sequestration.
Did you hear what she just said in light of who her defendant is? Okay, so what this tells me is that he's a pain in the neck for this defense attorney. And at first I thought, oh, is this going to be one of those that he does the whole sovereign citizen thing? No, I just think he's trying to make it sound like his defense attorney isn't doing what she's supposed to be doing.
So what I've done, Your Honor, is what I have my 911 custodian of records. I can call him first. Then what I've done for my other witness for the victim as for sequestration, while we're on Zoom court, I have asked our victim advocate to place her, have her on hold. And she has been instructed, Your Honor, also not to observe any of the court proceedings real time on YouTube.
Okay.
And if what we can do is when it's time to call each witness, I just need a moment to text the witnesses to tell them to come on to the call, if that is all right with the court.
That works. I mean, otherwise I can put them in a waiting room, but I'm not sure that that was enabled with the link that went out. So that'll be acceptable. But my question is, are we ready to start early? Is I guess my base question.
I just need to get with the witnesses one more time to be sure that they're all at once on hold.
While you do that, let me have Ms. Hardy speak to both Ms. Baird and Ms. Forehand to go and take their information. And if the jail will bring them both to the podium individually, Ms. Baird and Ms. Forehand, and I'll create a breakout room while you guys are getting ready for the last matter that we have, if that's all right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge Powers,
Yes, ma'am.
while they're doing Baird and Forehand, Mr. Wattenberger, they still need a breakout room for him? Okay, 1 minute.
Mr. Who?
Wattenberger?
I don't know that we have a Wattenberger.
Yeah, he was from the 8 a.m. man. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Your Honor, we agreed to continue him. I will schedule a visit to speak with him later.
Okay.
All right, so he can go back. Thank you, Deputy.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. She's a queen.
All right.
Your Honor, may I be excused to get our witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Deputy, you should see a breakout room invitation so Ms. Hardy can take their information.
This case, actually, I think this occurred, if I remember correctly, this goes back to COVID. This was during COVID.
I really want to ask her why that can't get time served.
All right, are we ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes.
I'll take the plea first.
Okay.
All right. And
I did-
you already submitted the paperwork on that, Ms. Thurman?
I did, Your Honor. And I did just want to clarify that on the Ms. Jansen and I did come to an agreement for 5 years probation. And on the paperwork, I had 8 years.
Okay. All right, great. We'll clarify that then. Ma'am, if I can get you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
Yes,
All right, you may put your hand down. What is your true and correct name?
Miranda and Rodriguez.
All right, and are you waiving any misnomer on the accusation then, Ms. Thurman?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You're charged with multiple counts, ma'am. With the sale, please place on the record what they're going forward with.
Yes, Your Honor, the defendant is pleading guilty pursuant to our plea negotiation to count 1, possession of methamphetamine, as well as to count 4, possession of firearm by a first offender probationer. The other counts will be dismissed.
All right.
Going to the plea negotiation.
Do you understand what you were charged with, ma'am?
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
All right, Ms. Jansen, if you'll repeat the 2 charges, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the two charges that we have negotiated a guilty plea on are count 1, possession of methamphetamine, and count 4, possession of a firearm by a first offender prisoner. The other counts will be dismissed pursuant to plea negotiations.
All right, did you hear that, ma'am?
No.
All right, and let me ask Ms. Thurman, for the purposes of this hearing, is she waiving her right to be in my physical presence? I neglected to ask that.
She is, Your Honor.
All right, and ma'am, are you represented by Ms. Thurman as your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to discuss these charges with her?
Yes, ma'am.
Has she taken the time and opportunity to counsel you and advise you concerning your rights and options with respect to these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with the advice and counsel that she has given you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to put either guilty or not guilty to the charges?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, if you signed a document here this morning indicating you intend to plead, or have you signed a document, maybe not this morning, indicating you intend to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go over that document with your lawyer before you signed it?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she explain to you the nature of the charges pending, all of your statutory and constitutional rights that apply to your case, the potential range of punishment for these offenses, and the consequences of you pleading here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you satisfied that you fully and completely understand each matter as it applies to your case?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Thurman, did you go over the police statement with your client?
I did, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied that she fully and completely understands each matter as it applies to her case?
I do, Your Honor.
Do you know of any reason why she should not accept her plea?
No.
Ma'am, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you intend to plead?
Guilty.
Has anyone threatened you or coerced you in any manner to force you to plead guilty against your wishes?
No, ma'am.
As you stand here today, are you under the influence of any type of intoxicant?
No, ma'am.
Will the state please provide a factual basis?
Yes, Your Honor. Should this case have gone to trial, the state would expect the evidence to show that on or about September 3rd, 2019, the defendant was driving her car and was stopped for a tag light violation in Clayton County at the intersection of Terra Boulevard and Battle Creek. The defendant was found to have 3 passengers in her car, one of them with a warrant. The officers observed a glass pipe with the backseat passenger that they found to have residue of methamphetamine in it after field test. The front passenger on the floorboard had a bag of methamphetamine as well. On the front passenger board was a sawed-off rifle. The defendant is on probation as a first offender, Your Honor. The recommendation is 5 years. This is solely for the purposes of the plea. The recommendation from Fast Track went to 5 years of probation to be completed. DRC, the drug and alcohol evaluation and treatment if deemed necessary, submission to random drug screens, and a waiver of Fourth Amendment right to search and seizure, as well as attorney fees and probation fees, Your Honor. Thank you.
Is that your understanding of the state's recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I will accept your plea. Anything further on behalf of your client?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be 5 years probation, Clayton Day Reporting Center, 4A waiver, attorney's fees, probation fees. You have 4 years from today, state, to file a habeas corpus petition in this matter. What's the announcement in the violation of probation?
She's doing a full step.
All right, so the state will please place that on the record.
I am not in receipt of the VOP. I will ask Officer Stanley if she can do that.
Sure. Judge, you ready?
Yes.
On about September 3rd, 2019, the defendant committed the offenses in which she just pled to, which is the possession of methamphetamine and the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The state will be withdrawing the charges that was null processed on her petition, which is the possession of the sawed-off shotgun, sawed-off rifle, machine gun, a dangerous weapon, or silencer. Failure to pay as ordered. The defendant is currently $2,056 in arrears on court-ordered monies. Her last payment of $97 was provided on August 21st, 2019. Violation of special conditions to complete an anger management program. The defendant has failed to provide proof of enrollment or completion and/or anger management. And she's also violated the special condition to submit to HIV testing. She's failed to provide proof of HIV testing, Judge. She has 1 year, 2 years, 9 months, 7 days remaining on her first offender sentence, Judge. And the state's recommendation is that she be adjudicated guilty, 2 years to serve in the state penal system in case closed.
All right. Is that your understanding as to the stipulation?
That is, Your Honor.
Okay, including the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. I will adjudicate her, find by preponderance of the evidence then that she's violated her probation, adjudicate her guilty, sentence her to 2 years to serve, and then her case will close in that matter. All right, she can go back. Well, actually, she needs to hold for Ms. Hardy. That's another one. She and Ms. Baird both need to hold up here for Ms. Hardy. So,
Ms. Forehand had a question.
yes.
About the 2 years, I've been in Clayton County for 13 months. I know I probably should have asked my attorney about this whole situation.
The sheriff will calculate that, and the Department of Corrections will calculate your time that you've served as you're allowed to. I'm not allowed to make that calculation.
So I'm asking
Judge, that's up to the Department of Corrections.
this time
I'm sorry?
seem to be sentenced to months instead of years. That way my inmate worker time can count.
No, I've adjudicated you guilty for 2 years.
Okay.
All right. Anything further?
No, thank you.
All right. If she'll just hold up here for that. What's the announcement? And I mean, she doesn't have to be right here, but as long as she and Ms. Baird are up, so when I call them back to be able to speak to probation. What's the announcement in Smith?
Your Honor, that is a hearing.
On the case.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Ms. Jansen?
I was letting you my case.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
It'll be a hearing, Your Honor.
Okay. How many witnesses do you have, Ms. Jansen?
If there's no stipulation to the foundation on the 911 call, we have 5 witnesses, Your Honor. And we have sent the 911 call to both the defense counsel, probation officer, and to the court ahead of time so that there are not any unforeseen technical difficulties. We've also sent to the court the jail phone calls as well as the certification, since those are self-authenticating.
Is there going to be a step to the phone calls, Ms. Reddick?
In light of who my client is, Your Honor, no, I cannot. We have to go through all the formalities, Judge.
Okay, all right. Are all your, I know it's a 10 a.m. calendar. Are all your witnesses on the call or ready to go?
They can't be because of sequestration. So what I've done, Your Honor, is what I have my 911 custodian of records. I can call him first. Then what I've done for my other witness for the victim as for sequestration, while we are on Zoom court, I have asked our victim advocate to place her, have her on hold. And she has been instructed, Your Honor, also not to observe any of the court proceedings real time on YouTube.
Okay.
And if what we can do is when it's time to call each witness, I just need a moment to text the witnesses to tell them to come onto the call, if that is all right with the court.
That works. I mean, otherwise I can put them in a waiting room, but I'm not sure that that was enabled with the link that went out. So that'll be acceptable. But my question is, are we ready to start early? Is I guess my basic question.
I just need to get with the witnesses one more time to be sure that they're all at once on hold.
While you do that, let me have Ms. Hardy speak to both Ms. Baird and Ms. Forehand to go ahead and take their information. And if the jail will bring them both to the podium individually, Ms. Baird and Ms. Forehand, and I'll create a breakout room while you guys are getting ready for the last matter that we have, if that's all right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge Powers,
Yes, ma'am.
while they're doing Baird and Forehand, Mr. Wattenberger, they still need a breakout room for him? Go sit on a minute.
Mr. Who?
Wattenberger?
I don't know that we have a Wattenberger.
Yeah, he was from the 8 a.m. man. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Your Honor, we agreed to continue him. I will schedule a visit to speak with him later.
Okay.
All right, so he can go back. Thank you, Deputy.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. She's a female.
All right.
Your Honor, may I be excused to get our witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Deputy, you should see a breakout room invitation so Ms. Hardy can take their information. I believe they're trying to get their witnesses, so we're just going to stand by.
Your Honor, while they're trying to get the witnesses, may I have one last chance with my client to see if he really wants to continue with this?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Deputy, if you will bring Mr. Smith to the podium, I'm going to place he and Ms. Reddick in a breakout room.
Will you also place Ms. Thurman, Mr. Williams, and Ms. Clark, please, Judge?
Sure.
Thank you.
Put your hands behind your back.
He looks like trouble, doesn't he? Little weasel.
Good morning. Give me just a second, sir. Your lawyer wishes to speak to you. I'm working on creating a breakout room so you can do that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Reddick, what's the announcement?
Your Honor, I would like to place on the record that I did advise Mr. Smith, should Your Honor find that there is probable cause in this hearing, he is subject to a revocation of up to 3 years, 11 months, and 1 day. I reminded him of the evidence the state intends to present, and he said he would like to continue with this process. So we will be doing the hearing, Judge.
All right, and that I'm not bound by any recommendation if I find by preponderance of the evidence that he has violated his probation. I could revoke the max and would not be bound by any prior negotiation. Is that correct, Ms. Reddick?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
They hadn't came to me with any negotiation though.
Mr. Smith, I did, and you kept saying you want a hearing. That's what we just did in the breakout room. I reminded you again. You said you want the hearing.
In 11 months that they were trying to take.
I'm sorry, what did you say, sir?
I tell you what is the state's recommendation should he want to resolve this short of a hearing? I know Ms. Reddick has had extensive conversations with her clients, and that's not for any other purpose other than just to put it on the record.
Your Honor, the state's recommendation is that the balance be revoked.
Okay. All right.
And I believe that's been placed, he's already been notified of what the balance is.
Okay. All right. I'd like to call it for, first of all, let me ask, for the purposes of this hearing, Ms. Reddick, is he waiving his right to be in my physical presence?
At this point, Your Honor, I can't say with any certainty. Mr. Smith, are you requiring to be in court with the judge, or are you willing to continue on video?
I'm waiting. I want to have this hearing, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. And so does the state wish to make an opening statement?
Just briefly, Your Honor, the violations that we are before the court on at this time are regarding, first of all, a new violation of law. This is a May 30th, 2020 violation for which he is accused and charged with, or will be charged with, aggravated assault and cruelty to children in the 3rd degree. And in this case, Your Honor, he poured gasoline on the victim and held a lighter up and told her he was going to catch her on fire. We have the 911 call. We also, Your Honor, will be showing the court that the defendant is already on probation. That's why we're here today. It's a violation of probation to have no contact at all with the victim. And the state expects to show with the evidence under the preponderance of evidence standard that the defendant did violate the no contact order, as well as no further violations. Also, the defendant is charged with violating the no contact provision for which he was sentenced in the previous case that he's on probation for against the same victim. The state expects to place into evidence self-authenticating jail call records, wherein the defendant has, since the time of this new incident going into intake, the defendant has called the victim in this case and in his probation case more than 358 times. The calls that we expect to submit into evidence, Your Honor, include after court on 9/11, court was before Your Honor, and he was asking for a hearing. After that, he called the victim, and the evidence will show, trying to tell her that if we didn't have a witness, we didn't have a case, among other things. The third phone call which we have submitted to the court, as well as defense counsel, Your Honor, that we have chosen as the third jail call to place into evidence concerns a phone call made by the defendant after our last court date before Your Honor, that being September 25th, 2020. After we brought up in front of Mr. Smith that we have these jail phone calls, it was found by the state's investigator that Mr. Smith placed yet another phone call to the victim from a different inmate's account in order to continue to speak with the in violation. These are the pieces of evidence, Your Honor, that we expect to put in. We have the 911 operator, we have our police officer. In the new case, we have our investigator, victim advocate, as well as the victim, and they are our suspects. Thank you, Judge.
Any opening on behalf of the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the state may call its first witness.
Thank you, Judge. The state calls to Zoom, Tim White.
All right, Mr. White, if you can unmute your camera as well as your audio.
Yes, ma'am.
Your
All
camera as well.
All right. Judge, I've notified all of our witnesses.
Okay, and if you'll just let me know when they get here what their names are, and I'll place them in the waiting room.
Thank you.
Internet.
Okay, so that's audio. And you got,
All right, Your
and
Honor,
click on your little guy.
DuVoe is our victim advocate. She is now.
She is what? She's your victim advocate. I'm sorry, Mr. White was unmuted.
Yes, Your Honor, Valerie DeVoe.
Okay, and so she's going to be one of your witnesses.
Yes, foundational witness, yes.
All right, hang on, let me put her in the waiting room. All right, she's been put in the waiting room.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. White, have you gotten your video portion fixed?
I'm in Zoom.
All right, so you're part of the proceedings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they've already called me.
Right.
That's the problem. I have the audio, I have the video.
There you go. Thank
Okay,
you, Schindler.
you do now.
Okay.
All right,
You're a fine young man, sir.
are we ready, Ms. Reddick?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, state may call its first witness.
The only issue we have now, if the victim is going to
Then we'll stop and I'll put him in a waiting room.
we are waiting for P. Miller, who will be joining, and from Hamilton, Your Honor.
All right,
And Your Honor, may I ask who Ms. Kim Raines is?
she's my court reporter.
Oh, thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. All right, state may call its first witness.
Got no clue. I just handed him the phone.
State calls Tim White to this.
All right, Mr. White, if I can get you to please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, you may put your hand down. Go ahead, counsel.
All right, Mr. White, for the record, your name and spell it out.
Tim. My name is Tim White.
And where are you employed?
I am employed with Clayton County Police Department's Records Division.
All right, and your employment include being custodian? Oh,
Yes, ma'am. I'm the digital records custodian. I maintain the 911 audio and recordings created throughout that division.
all right, and tell the court how those calls are made. how they are recorded?
When a call is received in the 911 center, from the moment the call is answered until the completion of that call, the call is automatically recorded on a secured server within the center.
Right? And are those calls then compiled by you?
Those calls are stored on a server. They are retrieved as necessary when requested, whether it be for court proceedings such as this or for other matters, investigative purposes and such.
All right. And are they prepared in the normal course of business there at CCPD?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
And are the calls and the recordings made at or near the time that the events that they're recording?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And are they made in the normal course of business as well as extracted by the normal course of business as part of your duties?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you have the in this case, Clayton County Police Department case number 2002-5889 to extract the 911 like this?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. And what was the
Your Honor, one moment, Judge. Ms. Jansen cut off at the last part of her question, so I didn't get all of it.
Okay, Ms. Jansen, if you'll please re-ask the last part of your question. I don't know if you've got an issue with your audio feed, but it did cut. I think I understood it, but I think it cut off a little bit. Thanks.
All right. Yes, I'll ask you again, Mr. White. Did you have to take the opportunity to extract and compile the 911 call that was related to the report, in this case, police report number 2002-5889?
Yes, ma'am. I retrieved that audio and forwarded it to Investigator Gomez.
All right. And what was the process that you used in producing both the original audio tape and the copy to which you gave to Investigator Gomez?
Well, the original audio is recorded at the time of the call. It's immediately then stored onto the server. When I receive a request, I go through a process, in this case, using the case number provided, to use a computer-aided dispatch system to find the information related to that call, the date, time of that call, input that information into the recording server so that I can retrieve the audio from the position or positions if there's multiple calls that the calls were answered at.
And Officer White, when you found the original call, what was it with regard to the date and the time?
The original call, looking at that information now. I'm sorry, the case number again.
2002-58.
Okay. The original call was received on May 30th, 2020. 2002-5889, correct?
Yes, thank you. And have you had the opportunity to compare, well, actually listen to the original call?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you make a copy of that phone call?
That call was retrieved directly from the server, saved into a file, and then added to an email and sent to Investigator Gomez.
Did you also take the opportunity to then review the copy of the phone call that you made from the original that you extracted?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you listened to the copy that you sent to Investigator Gomez from the DA's office, did you find there were any alterations or
Ma'am. The call was as it was received.
right? And did you find when listening to the audio that the caller identified herself?
Yes, ma'am.
And who did she identify herself as?
The caller was asked for their name. They provided the name of Pamela Greason.
Right. And thank you, Judge. At this time, the state would ask to tender into evidence. It would be State Exhibit 1.
All right, and before I ask for any objection, Ms. Jansen, sometimes your audio is cutting out a little bit in your questioning, so I don't know if it's where you are or what's going on with your equipment, but see if you can remedy that. Any objection, Ms. Ruddock?
No, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 1 is admitted without objection. Go ahead. Anything further of this witness?
No, we just would like to publish, and
Hang on, Mr. White, don't leave. There we go, thanks.
but we do not have any further questions of this.
Okay, are you intending to publish State's Exhibit 1 now?
Yes, state asks for permission to publish.
All right, go ahead.
Might take me just a moment, Your Honor. And for the record, Your Honor, the state has actually sent State Exhibit 1 to both defense counsel and to the court. Should technical difficulties arise, I'm sorry. My apologies, Judge, I'm going to ask for help with my computer and go on to the next witness and then publish if that is permissible.
That's fine. First, let me ask Ms. Redditt, do you have any questions of Mr. White?
Yes, Your Honor, just a few basic ones. Mr. White, when
Yes, ma'am.
the call comes into the call center, it immediately starts recording voice.
It records at the moment the call's answered. Yes, ma'am.
So it records everything that's said on the call?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it also record the phone number?
The recording of the phone number is not part of the audio recording. It is captured in the system, but not part of the audio recording.
Was it captured in the system on this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to tell me the phone number associated with 200258889 on May 30th?
Yes, ma'am. The phone number is 678-353-9985.
Okay. And does any part of your 911 call recording system track the location that the phone is calling from, or is it just?
No, ma'am. The recording does not track the location of the call. When the call comes into the 911 center, there's a screen that pops up identifying the location, the name, the call, the name the phone may be in, and if it's available from the cell phone provider or landline provider, the location of the caller in that regard, that's captured on another system.
Okay, but that's not part of what you manage as the records custodian for 911 calls?
No, ma'am. I maintain the digital records for the recordings and the computer-aided dispatch.
And how long are these things stored on your server?
A minimum of 3 years is required by state law.
Okay. And I thought I heard you say that what you have to do is pull from the case number to get the date and time of the call, and then you put that into another location to actually pull the call out?
Yes, ma'am. In order to track calls for service, we use the computer-aided dispatch system. That's how calls are tracked, maintained, dispatched to public safety agencies.
Mhm.
When I'm provided information for a request, in this case, I was provided the case number. I use the computer-aided dispatch system to retrieve the information related to that call. Gives me all the pertinent information as far as date, time, unit, or units that responded to the call. The position that the call was answered at is within the notes of that call, so that I can then go back to the recorder using that information to retrieve the recordings.
Okay. Now, the computer-aided dispatch, is that what is referred to as CAD reports?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And CAD reports would have been generated in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How are you able to determine that the 911 call that you pulled was actually the accurate 911 call? Like, how do you know 3 different calls that come in are not, which one is the right one?
Well,
In fact, I believe the exhibit has already been admitted, and now we're going outside the scope for the purposes of the hearing.
What's your response to? So what is your legal objection?
Outside the scope of the hearing at this point, Your Honor.
Okay. Response.
CAD record or pieces of evidence is outside the scope of the hearing.
I don't know that outside the scope of a hearing is a legal objection, but I think what you're saying is that you're having an objection to relevance. What's the response?
Your Honor, I was actually trying to determine how he knew that the call that he pulled was in fact the original call. I don't believe that's outside the scope. I believe that's a part of what I'm entitled to go into, as the state is trying to present it as the original call. So I just want to ask additional follow-up questions to clarify, and I think I'm entitled to a thorough and sifting cross. And I don't believe I'm going outside the scope of the hearing?
You can ask that question, but the document has been admitted without objection. So I'm going to overrule as to that question, but you may proceed.
Officer White, I'm sorry. Is it Officer White?
No, ma'am. I'm a civilian employee.
Oh, Mr. White, sorry about that.
That's quite all right.
How were you able to determine that this one call was the original call?
When I'm provided information, in this case, a specific case number, and I input that into the computer-aided dispatch system, it shows me the call for service. That call for service shows me the address, the type of call, the date, time of the call. It is from that information that I'm able to go back to the server and review the calls to find calls associated with this event. In reviewing the audio for those calls, the caller provides the address, which is confirmed with the address that shows up on the call for service on the CAD system.
Okay. And it's to your knowledge that Ms. Greason actually did that in this case?
Well, she's the one that identified herself on the call, so I can only assume so.
No additional questions, Your Honor.
You redirect?
No, Your Honor, and at this time, the state is ready to publish the State's Exhibit 1.
All right, hang on. That doesn't require this witness. Is there anything further of this witness?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right.
Nothing from defense, Your Honor.
May he be excused?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to remove you. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Jansen. You can play that, and then yeah, no one else is on the call. You can play that, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, investigation. Hi, repeat your address. 7,000 Edgewood Drive, Florida, Georgia. Okay, what's going on there? You got gas in your eyes? Who did that to you? Who was that? My boyfriend. Where is he now? I don't know. Shit, my bird. What's your name? Sam Dreesen. Miss Dreesen. Yes. Anybody there have a weapon? No. Anybody been drinking or doing drugs? No, I do drugs, yeah. He is? Yeah. Do you know what kind? I don't know. And you don't know where he went? No, I don't. And if you see it shortly, the paramedics and the officers.
Thank you, Your Honor. That is the end of State's Exhibit 1.
All right.
And I would ask, had any audio issues?
No, I was able to hear it. Were you able to hear it, Ms. Reddick?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and if you'll make sure that a copy of that gets to the court reporter as well, thanks. All right, who would you like to admit? I've got both Ms. DeVoe and Mr. Gomez in the waiting area. Who would you like for me to admit?
Okay, does Your Honor have P. Miller, Officer P. Miller?
I do not, and I do not see that Officer Miller has joined the call.
Okay, all right, I'll go out of order and call Investigator Gomez, Judge.
All right. All right, give me just a moment. Ms. Greason has joined the call. Let me put her in the waiting room. Ms. Greason, I'm going to place you in the waiting room while we continue with the hearing. Just give us just a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Investigator Gomez, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, if I can get you to please raise your right hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right, now put your hand down. Go ahead, Ms. Jansen.
Thank you, Judge. Investigator Gomez, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Clayton County District Attorney's Office.
And what do you do for the Clayton County District Attorney's Office?
I am a criminal investigator, which means I review and prepare criminal cases for indictment and or trial.
And with regard to this case that we're presently before the court on, State versus Anthony Smith, has it been within your job duties to work on this case?
Yes, ma'am, it has.
All right. And with regard to jail phone calls and text messages, have you had the opportunity to work on that end of this case?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
All right. And with regard to the Clayton County Jail phone calls and text messages, have you been trained on this system?
I have.
And can you briefly tell the judge about your training on this system at the Clayton County Jail?
Yes, ma'am. When I was given access to the Clayton County Jail system, the text message and phone call system, I went through a brief training back a couple of years ago, I believe, with Lieutenant Pauls at the time at the Clayton County Jail, where he showed me how to sign in, how to search calls, how to download calls, and various things with text messages as well. The same, basically the same, searching and downloading text messages as well.
All right. And have you, in prior cases to State versus Anthony Smith, downloaded calls in other cases?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And with regard to the phone system itself, Investigator Gomez, how does it work so that an inmate can make an outside call?
So when an inmate gets booked into the jail, they're given a LE number, which is a number specific to that inmate. When the inmate gets to their, their housing unit, they're allowed to use a kiosk within the housing unit to set up their own account to use the phone system, and they're able to set up a PIN as well. So only that inmate knows that PIN and can log into their own account and make calls or receive text messages as well.
All right. And in this particular case, was the inmate made aware that the calls are being recorded?
Yes. Whenever an inmate makes a phone call, there is a recording at the beginning of every call. I don't know the exact wording of the recording, but it does state that the calls can be recorded, and if you proceed with this, you agree to the recording.
All right. And when you, I'm going to point you to the State's Exhibit number 2, which is tell the judge what you extracted for this case.
I don't see the exhibit.
I apologize. For purposes of Zoom and the virtual exhibits, the state has forwarded all of these documents to defense counsel as well as to the court, and that is what the investigator is speaking to. I want to verify receipt. Can the court verify receipt of these exhibits?
I mean, I've gotten them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to share screen with Detective Gomez or Investigator Gomez or what. I've gotten them. I just haven't opened them because they haven't been admitted.
Thank you. I just want to be sure that defense counsel also knew which exhibits were. I tried to share screen, Your Honor, and I was unable.
That's fine.
Yes, Your Honor, I received the email. Are we trying to say that the email is in lieu of him going through the authentication process?
I don't think that's what they're trying to say. I just think that they're trying to make sure everybody can see it. Share screen's not working.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Judge. With regard to the inmate's name and the inmate's PIN, tell us how you were able to extract jail phone calls in this particular case, Investigator Gomez.
Well, first, what I did was I logged into the inmate call system with my own personal login name and password that was given to me through the sheriff's office. Then he did a search using the inmate's name and a date range. And once I did that search, all the calls that that particular inmate made, which in this case would be Anthony Smith, all the calls from that date range that I selected came up.
Okay. And How many, well, let me go ahead, Your Honor. The state is going to, at this time, tender into evidence State's Exhibit 2 under 24-8-803 subsection 6. Your Honor, these records are self-authenticating.
Any objection to SE2? Well, you went back to mute. Sorry. It's still muted. There we
No,
go.
Your Honor, I apologize.
That's all right. That's fine. They're admitted without objection. Thank you.
All right, Investigator Gomez, tell the court which phone calls you were concentrating on finding.
There were two calls in particular. I don't have the downloads with me at this time that I actually downloaded, but there were two calls, I believe, on September, may have been 24th or 25th.
With regard to the exhibit that is presently been admitted to the court, Officer Gomez, did you find any phone calls between the defendant and the victim in this case?
Yes, I did.
How many?
Well, there were several calls made in between the defendant and the victim in this case.
Do you know how many?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, approximately how many?
There were over 300 calls on his call log from the time that he was booked in. And the majority of them were to the victim.
Okay. The majority of the over 300 phone calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And with regard to the with regard to the phone calls, are you able to, based on your training, find out whether or not a call was made through another inmate's account to the same number of the victim?
Yes, I was. After a few days passed, I did another search, this time using the phone number of the victim, which was 404-454-1891. And on the return of the search, I was able to see that one call was made to that phone number using another inmate's account, and that inmate was named Patrick Kemp.
Okay. And were you able to determine that was, how did you determine that this was Anthony Smith making the phone call to that same phone number?
During the recording, the review of the recording, Anthony Smith stated, hey, something to the fact, hey, it's me, I had to use, someone's account. And he talked about his specific case, talked about how the investigators or someone at the courts were pulling all the calls and they couldn't talk anymore in reference to the case. And he basically talked about that they're trying to give him more time. They, as in, I'm assuming the courts. I'm not sure what exactly.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Response.
No response, Your Honor.
Sustain the objection. Don't speculate as to what somebody meant when they said something. Continue.
Right.
Okay.
And tell us about your training with getting the text messages that we've admitted from the inmate, Anthony Smith, in this case, to the victim, in this case, Pamela Greason, at that phone number, the target phone number that you've been using.
Yeah, so the text messages are basically the same as the phone calls. The phone call system and the text message system is using the same kiosk. And the inmate would set it up in the same way that they would set up the phone call system as well.
All right. And were you able to extract text messages from the inmate to the victim at the same phone number in this particular case?
Yes.
All right. And with regard to the phone calls that were initially made, the two that we have entered into evidence, do you recall September 11th, 2020?
You talking about the date that the calls were made?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I actually recall those actual dates.
Okay.
I'm just trying to go from my memory here at the time now.
Okay. Would it help you to see your documents?
Yes, it
To
would.
refresh the section?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, we are in the same physical location. If I may request the investigator to come to my office.
Sure, if that's going to refresh his memory as to where the documents are, yes.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, as a way of approaching the witness, if Investigator Gomez can come to my office to obtain the exhibit.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. And Your Honor, the witness is now returning to the stand. I did, Your Honor, send a chat notice for Officer Stanley to be in the waiting room as well.
She's in the waiting room. She's not on the call.
As soon as the witness appears back on the screen, we will resume our questioning. I apologize for any glitches.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Now, if you can look at that exhibit, state what has been admitted as State's Exhibit 2, Investigator Gomez, can you check to see if any of the phone calls were made on September 11th, 2020?
Yes, there were 2 phone calls made on September 11th, 2020.
Okay. And are those the 2 phone calls that you extracted?
Yes.
Okay. And as with regard to the 3rd phone call that was after September 11th from the other inmate's account, can you tell the court the date of that phone call?
That phone call would have been on September 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. And Your Honor, I would like to verify for the court and defense counsel that it was the email that was sent this morning that we are speaking of with all 3 business records and text messages. And that's what we would ask to publish at this time.
Okay, is that what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 2?
Yes.
All right, you can publish. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. All right.
For elections and reasons, for a prepaid enter the area code in. Please wait while I connect your call. All phone calls are subject to monitoring and recording. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office and NCIC are not liable if you proceed with a call that should not be recorded. Yeah, come on now. What?
Yeah, I was trying to call you back and see if you could hear me now. The phone probably messed up. And, but I was trying to set my court date for September 25th. It was me, dating president for the week as a witness, and like without his petition, they still won't be able to violate my probation or whatever. They just trying to say I had contact with you because you saw involvement in you. And so it was like, okay, I can do your time, help me out with this situation. I highly appreciate it. Yes, I enjoy you just sit going and definitely background. Yes, man. So late.
Your Honor, I believe that it's harder to hear the other side of the call. I think we can hear who would they say is Mr. Smith pretty clearly, but we can't hear the other information coming from the recipient of the call clearly on Zoom at this point.
Okay, so are you asking to be able to listen to your, this is the same version that was sent via email for all of us? Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. The issue for me is that my client didn't have the benefit of hearing them
I see what
before
you're
today.
saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. Is there any way to play that audio and hit share screen at all from your computer?
I don't know how. Let me try.
I don't know if that will help that. And Mr. Smith, I know you're standing for the purposes of this hearing, and I know it's been going on for a moment, but are you still comfortable?
I mean, I'm not comfortable, ma'am, but I'm having to deal with it, Your Honor.
Okay. I mean, are you still able to pay attention? I know you're standing. We can take a brief recess. If you need to sit down for a minute, you let me know.
I'm okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
And I do apologize, Judge. I will start it from the beginning.
All right. I'm not sure that that's any better, actually, Ms. Jansen, but thank you for attempting to play that. I'm not hearing it any better. Is anybody else hearing it any better?
No, Your Honor. It actually came across a little more distorted.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not, I mean, I'm publishing it to the court. I don't know exactly how else to publish it to the defendant.
All right, let's continue with your examination, and then we can revisit if necessary. I've heard the defendant's statement, and Ms. Reddick, you don't believe there's any way to get that to your client to be able to have heard it either from your computer. I know it's not your burden. I'm just making sure from an audio perspective. I'm just trying to brainstorm a problem solve here.
I don't know. I can try to play it. My concern is that I would like the court to hear the entire call, not just my client's portion.
I agree. I mean, and I can play it from my computer, but that doesn't solve the problem from your perspective that you want your client to hear the entirety of it is my point.
Yeah, sure.
Because I will tell the court that I also had offered to download this to a CD for anyone to come and pick up. The state is making an effort to publish this to all parties.
Okay.
Your Honor, defense is not saying that the state hasn't. I just am asserting that in a hearing, it's the state's responsibility to ensure that the defendant is able to clearly hear all the evidence they tend to use.
Well, I think that might be my responsibility, not the state. So I'm trying to make sure that we make sure that your client's able to hear it. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet. I'm not saying that I'm not going to consider that piece of evidence. I'm going to try and finish up who we've got here, and then we'll take a brief recess because I've got a separate matter that I need to sign. And if you guys can figure out how to play that so he can hear it as well, And if we've got to recess the hearing, we will. I tell you what, I believe Mr. Sperry may be on the call. Mr. Sperry, are you ready for that document I need to sign in the warrant?
Yes, Judge, we're ready.
Okay, I tell you what, I will take a recess from this matter and send Mr. Sperry and I to the breakout room so I can swear that witness. And if you guys want to figure out if there's a way to play this audio while I'm taking care of that, that's what we'll do. Okay?
Your Honor, if you could place the jail in a breakout room with myself and the PDs, I will try to see if I can play it that way from my computer.
Okay, that's great. Okay.
We were not able to play it, Judge. We tried. We were not able to play it.
All right. Well, let's finish up all the other evidence, and then we'll go from there about whether or not we figured out a way for him to be able to hear it, or whether or not the state intends to proceed on that. But let's try and finish. We've got a fair amount of witnesses in the waiting room, so let's finish up that part first.
Thank you, Judge. Can you still hear me?
Yes, it is not great though. You want to switch back to your other computer?
I actually need to publish the other two phone calls, Judge, from the screen. And I think it's easy to hear. And, you know.
We'll see if they're able to hear.
And I do need to let the court know that I have sent defense counsel that phone call and another 4 times. Starting a week ago, the state is making an effort, and we do intend to proceed with this phone call.
Right, that's not the issue though. The issue is whether or not he can hear it from the jail during the course of the hearing. I understand you provided it in advance. The issue is whether or not he can hear them.
Okay, thank you, Judge. And at this time, Your Honor, the state would like to publish the next phone call.
Okay.
One moment, Judge. Apologize. Okay.
Your Honor, what I would propose is that we get through the oral testimony, and if the court deems it necessary to hear the recordings, I can go to the jail and play them for Mr. Smith, and then we can reconvene over those, unless the court believes that you've heard enough.
All right. Then let's do that, Ms. Jansen. Let's continue. Let's continue with the oral testimony, and then we'll go from there. All right?
Judge, trying to get Your Honor back on the screen. At this time, Your Honor, I have no further questions for Investigator Gomez.
Okay, Mr. Reddick, do you have any questions for Investigator Gomez?
Just a few, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I just want to make sure he was unmuted for you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Investigator Gomez, will you tell me the date range of all the calls that you pulled that are supposed to be from Mr. Smith?
Are you referring to his I guess his entire call log? I'm not.
Well, when you were on direct with 88 Jansen, you indicated that what you do is when you search for the person's name within a specific date range.
Yes.
I wanted to know what that date range was.
Okay, so the date range was when he was first booked into the jail, and I believe that was sometime in May. So I went back all the way to when he was booked into jail till I guess the present day when I pulled the jail calls may have been on the 24th, I believe.
That would have been September 24th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you indicated that you were able to determine the call. You gave a phone number for the victim and I missed it. You said 404.
Okay. May he be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. It may call its next witness.
Thank you, Judge. I'm sorry I switched back to my other advice.
That's all right.
That's why I disappeared for just a second. Your Honor, next the state would call to to the virtual stand Officer P. Miller.
All right. Good morning, Officer Miller. If you can unmute your video as well so we can be able to hear you or see you, thanks. If I can get you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you may put your hand down. Go ahead, Ms. Jansen.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Officer Miller. One moment.
Good morning.
Tell the court where you're employed.
Clayton County Police Department.
All right. And are you post certified?
Yes, I am.
All right. How long have you worked there?
Over 8 years.
All right. And what are your duties?
Answer calls of service, respond to 911 calls, enforce the laws of the state.
All right. And during the course of your employment, were you on duty answering 911 calls on May 30th, 2020?
Yes, I was.
All right. And with regard to this case, officer, were you called to the scene of 7000 Ledgewood Drive?
Yes.
And was that during your shift?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Can you tell the court approximately what time you were called out?
It was early in the morning, between 5:30 maybe.
Okay. All right. And what type of call was it when you were dispatched to this call?
It was a domestic call in reference to the victim having gasoline poured on her.
All right. And is 7000 Ledgewood Drive in Clayton County?
Yes, it is.
All right. With regard to the victim, have you heard the 911 call in this case?
Yes.
All right. And when you heard the 911 call, did you find that it corroborated what you were able to find out during your investigation?
Yes.
And were you able to match up the voices between the voice on the 911 call to the voice that you spoke to of the victim?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, what's your objection?
I believe this is an improper line of questioning. She's trying to use the officer to bolster a 911 call, saying that it matches up and the stories match and things like that. I think it's improper bolstering of the evidence, the 911 call, and I think it feels like, or it seems to me, that she's trying to also try to establish some credibility to the version of events Officer Miller is going to recite.
All right, is the question about whether or not he was able to identify the voice?
I just asked him if that was the same person in the 911 call as the person that he spoke to.
All right, I don't believe that that's improper bolstering at this point for whether or not that's the same person. You're welcome to renew an objection if it gets into that territory at that point. So for right now, go ahead.
Officer, can you answer the question if that was the same person, same voice?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, when you went to the scene, we've referred to the victim. Tell the judge who the victim was when you got there.
The victim was Pamela Greason.
All right. And tell us what you saw and what you heard when you arrived and how you started your investigation.
She met me outside. She smelled like gasoline. She advised her boyfriend was in an argument with her about work and him taking off, and she decided to tell him to go to work, and he got upset. The verbal altercation led to him punching her in the back of the head and going outside, getting a gasoline can, bringing it back inside, pointing it on her and in the living room.
Okay. And tell the court, when you say that it was her boyfriend, were you at any point able to identify who her boyfriend was that she was referring to?
Yes, she advised Anthony Smith was a boyfriend. She gave all his information. She gave me his work location, what time he would be there, what kind of vehicle he would be driving, and all the information matched up to the offender.
Okay, and so that was Pamela Greason at the scene who gave you that information that you just said?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to the state of Ms. Greason's, her person, tell the judge in more detail what you meant by she smelled like gasoline.
She had the smell of gasoline coming from her person. Her eyes was red from the gasoline being poured over her. As you can, she said her eyes were burning. Like I said, the heavy smell of gasoline came from her person. Also, when I went inside the residence, there was a smell, strong smell of gasoline inside the residence as well, in the area where, concentrated in the area where she say the gasoline was poured at.
Okay, and were you able to see any spots of on the floor of gasoline?
Yes.
What you believe to be gasoline?
Yes.
And what made you believe that that was gasoline?
Just from the story and the smell, the heavy smell of gasoline.
And when you were speaking to the victim and she was giving you an account of what occurred, did she state anything about what the defendant was saying?
He wanted his child, the child that they shared together. He wanted that child out the house, and she believed that if he would have got that child out the house, he would have set her and the house along with her other two children on fire.
And with regard to setting fire, did she mention any instrument for setting a fire?
She didn't mention a lighter.
Objection, Your Honor. Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response?
The victim is going to testify, Your Honor.
It doesn't make it not hearsay at this point. Which, do you have a hearsay response?
Actually, this is during the course of his investigation, and I'm asking him if he was able to corroborate what the victim stated, Your Honor.
All right, sustain the objection.
And officer, tell me more about what the victim stated occurred to her.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Well, he's actually been testifying to his investigation. Did you, I'll reword the question, Judge.
Anything the victim said at this point during the course of the investigation, if the victim is not testified, it's hearsay unless it fits an exception. If you can lay any foundation for that, then I will consider it. Okay. But at this point, it's sustained.
And at this time, Judge, it's under the excited utterance exception to the hearsay.
Okay, closing on your response.
Your Honor, I don't believe that this whole entire story is an excited utterance. I did not object to the initial first few questions because I believe when he first presented on scene, those may have been excited utterances. What we're getting into now is her responding to questions asked by this officer to try to get an understanding of what happened. I don't think those fall into the excited utterance exception.
All right, without more foundation as to whether or not it was told during the course of the exciting event or anything else, I believe at this point it is hearsay. Sustain the objection.
Thank you, Judge. And officer, when you were there and you said that the victim's eyes were red, can you give more detail about that to the court?
Yeah, she advised that he had poured the gasoline over her head and it got into her eyes, which caused her eyes to burn.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm slow with my unmute. Objection, Your Honor. He's going back into what she's advising. So I would say hearsay again.
And Your Honor, I'm asking the officer about the condition of the victim in order to show the court that she is still in the midst of her injuries as under the excited utterance exception to the hearsay rule.
I understand that, but his response, Your Honor, was what she said, not what he observed about her.
As it relates to anything that she is currently a present feeling or sensation, I will overrule as to anything that she is perceiving as to the feeling or the present condition. Anything else, though, is hearsay, and I would sustain it as to that.
Thank you, Judge. Officer, with regard to getting statements, were you able to get written statements from any witnesses?
Yes, I got written statements from Ms. Greason and her 17-year-old daughter.
All right, and who else did you find to be present at the scene?
The daughter that Ms. Greason and Smith shared together, and two other daughters that Ms. Greason have outside of the relationship with Mr. Smith.
Okay. And did you call for medical help for the victim?
She declined medical at the time,
Okay.
although her eyes were red
Okay.
from the incident.
All right. And tell us about were you able to locate the person that poured the gasoline on the victim?
Yes, later on, after maybe an hour or two after the incident, I was advised by Ms. Greason where he worked and where he would be at what time. And I went to that location and found the victim hiding.
The victim or the defendant?
I'm sorry, the offender was hiding.
Okay. And did you make contact with him?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And the person who you arrested, are you able to scroll through your Zoom scene and see that person on the Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing an orange jumpsuit.
All right. If the record can reflect that the officer has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
All right. All right. At this time, we have nothing further. Thank you, Judge.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, a brief one. Officer Miller, when you arrived at the scene, was Mr. Smith present?
No, he wasn't.
Did you give chase or see him leave the location?
No, I didn't.
When you were, at the time that you arrived at the scene, was there a warrant out for Mr. Smith's arrest?
Not at the time. Not when I arrived, no.
Okay. When did you take out a warrant for him?
No.
Okay. Do you know who took out well, how did he get arrested? If you didn't take out the warrant, how did he get arrested?
Wait a minute. If there was a warrant. No, there wasn't a warrant. I arrested him on a warrantless arrest affidavit.
I'm sorry, say that again. You arrested him on a what?
On a warrantless arrest affidavit.
Warrantless arrest affidavit. Okay. And that was based on what you observed when you went and responded to this call?
Yes.
Okay. And you arrested him. What location did you find him at?
At his job, which was it's a mechanic shop on Terra Boulevard. I'm trying to, what's the address?
That's fine. It was on Terra Boulevard?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated that about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the initial time you received the 911 call, you got information on where Mr. Smith was. How did you receive that information? Was it on your personal phone or was it through the 911 dispatch?
I got the information from the victim on scene when the initial investigation was being conducted.
So it wasn't like a subsequent phone call. Everything you got that one time?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, were photos taken of the scene or Ms. Greason when you were present?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. You indicated you smelled a strong scent of gasoline. Were you able to locate a gas can on the scene?
No, they advised that he took the gas can with him.
Okay. No additional questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
Yes, just one question, Your Honor. Officer, did you, when you were compiling your report for this case, did you get the victim's cell phone number?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the court what that is?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay. Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response.
Your Honor, this is part of what is in his report, and I'm asking him if he got the victim's contact information.
Name the objection that calls for hearsay.
All right. Thank you, Judge. We have no further questions. Thank you.
All right. May he be excused, or do you wish him to be retained?
I wish for him to be retained, Judge.
All right. I'm going to put you back in the waiting room, sir. Give me just a moment. All right. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Valerie DuBois.
All right, Ms. DeVoe, if you can unmute, please. Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Ms. DeVoe,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
where are you?
The Clayton County DA's office.
All right, and what is your position there?
Victim advocate.
And in the course of, we're having some feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
In the course and scope of your employment at the Clayton County District Attorney's Office as an advocate, have you had occasion to work on this case?
I was cutting off towards the end. I couldn't hear you.
Have you worked on the case of State Anthony Smith during your employment?
Yes.
And in the course of the employment, have you had occasion to contact the victim?
Yes.
What is the victim's name?
Pamela Grecian.
And what number contacted her at?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
That's not.
I don't believe that that's asking for a statement. She was asking her what number she contacted her at. That was not asking for a statement. I'll overrule it. Go ahead.
404-454-1891.
Thank you. And have you had to speak on the telephone more than once with the victim, in this case, Pamela Grecian?
Yes.
And have you also had occasion to listen to the 911 tape in the case?
Yeah. Yes.
And are you able to state that that is the same voice of voice recognition for Miss Greason as the person that you've spoken to on the telephone?
Objection, Your Honor, I believe this would be improper bolstering of the 911 call. We've had, and it's cumulative. We've had Mr. Tim White say who it was on the call. We've had Officer Miller say who it was on the call. And now we're getting a third person to say the same thing, that it was Miss Greason on the call.
Response.
Your Honor, this isn't bolstering. The already in. We're asking her about voice recognition.
All right, and I don't believe that it's improper bolstering. She's not being asked to comment on any of the witness's credibility. It's simply a voice identification. It's overruled. You may ask that question.
Your Honor, a two-part objection. I also say cumulative was the second prong of that.
I'm overruling your cumulative objection as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. DeVoe, can you answer the question about the voice that you heard in the 911 call as well as the voice that you've heard in your phone calls to the victim?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are they the same?
Yes, it's the same voice.
Okay. And with regard to jail phone calls, all three of the jail phone calls between the Anthony Smith victim?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat it? It was cutting off.
Have you listened to and reviewed jail phone calls in this case? 3 of them?
Yes, I've heard them.
And if, upon hearing the voice of the person that was called in jail calls, is that the same voice as that which you have heard on the phone when contacting the victim?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right. Any questions of this witness? Any cross-examination questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. May she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. No objection to that, Ms. Raddick? That she be excused? All right.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Who would you like to call next?
Judge, the state calls Pamela Grecion.
All right.
Hello?
All right, Ms. Grayson, if you can unmute your video for us, please. We can hear you, we just can't see you.
Okay, I'm mute.
All right, so this is where it gets interesting because this is where we're going to have the victim, his live-in girlfriend or whatever. He's probably living with her. She's probably paying all the bills. I don't know. Anyway, so his victim is going to come on, and guys, this is going to blow your, you know what? Maybe it won't blow your mind. Maybe it's typical. Maybe it's textbook.
Or start video.
I don't know how you do it.
If you click your phone, there you go. All right. If I can get you to please raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony that you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God?
Yes.
All right, may put your hand down. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Judge. And Ms. Greason, good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the case. Do you know Anthony Smith?
Yes.
How do you know him?
Child's father.
Okay. And do you recall an altercation 5/30/2020?
I don't actually recall that date. I try to block everything out of my head.
You tried to block what out of your head, ma'am?
Huh?
You tried to block what out of your head?
Things that happened. I really don't remember what happened.
When you say things that happen, you mean that day?
Correct.
And why do you block out? Did you have to block out what happened that day?
I just remember we just started fussing. I don't remember the rest.
And did you say that's because you blocked it out?
Correct.
And why did you block it out?
I don't want to think about that day.
And why don't you want to think about that day?
Just don't.
Can you give us an answer as to why?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. The immediate preceding question was why you don't want to think of that day. Ms. Greason said, I don't, and then the state repeated again why.
I'm going to overrule this ask and answer for the purposes of this question. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Jansen.
Okay, thank you, Judge. And how do you know Mr. Smith other than, well, actually, let me scratch that. Where is Mr. Smith now?
Clayton County Jail.
Do you know why?
Yes. They say aggravated assault.
Okay. And do you know anything about that case?
Ma'am?
Do you know why he's charged with aggravated assault?
Nope.
Okay. And are you involved in that case?
Yeah, I'm involved, but I don't recall that day. Yeah, I am.
Okay. And how do you know that you're involved in it?
Because the DA was calling me all week.
Okay. Is there any other way that you think you were involved?
No.
All right. And with regard to Mr. Smith, do you know when he became an inmate at the jail?
I don't.
All right. And how do you feel about testifying today?
I mean, it's fine with me.
Okay. So are you able to then give us more information about why Mr. Smith is in jail for aggravated assault?
Will I be able to give out more information?
Well, let me ask you this. Who did he assault?
Me?
Okay. And how did he assault you?
I don't remember. I don't even want to think about it, period, to be honest with you.
No, that's fine. We want you to be honest. You're under oath. And if you will tell Judge Powers, have you ever, do you recall calling the police that day?
I don't remember.
All right. And where were you that day?
I was home.
Okay. Where is home? Okay. And was that the last day that you saw Anthony Smith before he went to jail?
Yeah.
Do you recall speaking to the police at your home at 7000 Ledgewood?
I don't recall, but probably so. I don't recall.
When you say probably so, what makes you think probably so?
I really don't recall, but I don't know. I could have, so I don't know.
Okay. All right. When you say you could have, why would you possibly have spoken to the police that day?
I don't remember.
Okay. And we're still speaking of the assault, correct?
I assume.
Okay. Who else was home that day?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation. Her response was, I assume.
But the answer will stand as to whether or not she knows what we're speaking of. That I can separate the two. Continue.
And still talking about the assault case. Who else was home that day?
It was so many folks over here. I can't recall who was here and who wasn't here.
Do you have children?
I do.
How many?
I had 7 girls.
All right. And are any of those 7 daughters children that you share with Mr. Smith?
Just one.
And what is her name?
Keosha.
Okay. Do you recall if Keosha was with you that day?
She wasn't present at the time. No, ma'am, she wasn't.
Okay. And have you received from the state via email the 911 call and statement?
No, the statement, but no calls.
Okay. Have you had the opportunity to look at the written statement that was emailed to you?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Okay. Would you be able to review it at this time? Or I can hold it on camera.
You can hold on camera.
Your Honor, I'm approaching the witness with State's Exhibit number 3.
All right, go ahead.
And this has been previously served to defense counsel this morning.
It was, Your Honor. I would ask that Your Honor kind of like avert your eyes from the screen since we can only show it on Zoom. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to place it up to the screen and ask you, Ms. Greason, to look at it. Can you see it?
It's blurry, but yeah, I see it. It's blurry.
All right. And what is that?
I guess a written statement.
Okay. From whom? Pamela who?
Grief.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't know if the state is trying to refresh her memory or trying to have her testify to something that's not in evidence. Testify from something that's not in evidence.
No, Your Honor, I'm asking her to refresh her recollection.
Okay. I mean, I think she can identify, without going into the contents of the statement, I think she can identify whose statement it is, or if you're trying to lay foundation for impeachment, I don't know. So it's overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Greason, can you hear me?
Yes.
Upon seeing this written statement, does this refresh your recollection of what happened that day?
No, ma'am, it don't, because it's blurry. I can't see it. No, ma'am, it don't reflect my memory.
Okay. Your Honor, based on technological issues, we would like to ask the witness to read it on her email. I have sent her a copy so that we would save time.
All right. You're asking for her to refresh her memory by reading it from her email?
Yes, I did send it to her so that in case we had any technical issues with sharing the screen.
All right, Ms. Greason, pull it up and you can read it to yourself. Don't read it out loud. It's not been admitted.
But if I pull up on my phone, y'all gonna hang up.
That's correct. Are you able to just share the screen, Ms. Jansen, and put that up on the screen so she can see it? Because she will get disconnected if she switches out of Zoom.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, if you want to share the screen.
I don't want to start an echo again. That will make me have to log out on my phone and log in with my computer screen I'm just asking for leave of the court for a second to do that.
All right.
Thank you, Judge. Will make me
I think he's trying to communicate with her here non-verbally. Of course, we already know he's called her. She didn't want to look at him though, which makes me wonder if she's scared of him.
Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to ask that Ms. Jansen email that to me as well. The email I got from her this morning is 47 pages, and it says text messages from the jail, but it does not contain the statement that Ms. Greason is looking at. Ordinarily in court, I'd have had opportunity to review it before she presented it to the witness, but I don't have it at this point.
Well, hang on one second. Let's wait till Ms. Jansen joins, and then I'll listen to your objections so we can make sure everybody hears it. Thanks.
Can the court hear me?
Yes. All right, go ahead.
I apologize.
Your Honor, it's not necessarily an objection. It's just asking that Ms. Jansen email that statement to me, because the email I got from her this morning has 47 pages, but those 47 pages does not contain Ms. Greason's statement. And if we were in court, I'd had the ability to actually look at it before she presented it to the witness.
All right. Has the state served or given the defense an email copy of that statement?
I'm emailing it again right this minute, Judge.
All right, great. Thanks.
I just emailed it. And if I can ask.
All right, do you see that in your email, Mr. Reddick?
I've not.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry. Me and the mute are having a fight right now, but yes, I can see it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Your Honor, I'm going to place it on the screen now. Hopefully you all can see. May I ask if all parties can see this?
Go ahead.
Ms. Grayson, are you
Yes.
State Exhibit 3?
I can't hear you.
Are you able to see State Exhibit 3 on the screen right now?
I see some on the screen, yeah.
All right. Are you able to read it? Is it blurry or is it clear now?
I see it.
Okay. Would you please look at this statement? Tell me if you recognize it now.
Say it again.
Look at the statement and tell me if you recognize it.
I don't recognize it.
Okay, thank you. And you're saying that you do not recognize this statement?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And have you received the 911 call that the state sent you?
I haven't.
All right. I'm going to play for you as State Exhibit 1 that has been admitted.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to grab it. One moment, Jay, I just need to locate it again. Here we go. And have you received the 911 call that the state sent you?
I haven't.
All right. I'm going to play for you as State Exhibit 1 that has been admitted.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to grab it. One moment, Jay, I just need to locate it again. Here we go. Yes, verification. Hi, repeat your address. 7,000 Ledgewood Drive, Forest Park, Georgia. Okay, what's going on there? I just wanted to, how you guys throw that gas in my eyes? You got gas in your eyes? Who did that to you? Who was that? Boyfriend. Where's now? I don't know. Good, bro. What's your name? Selma Dreeson. Miss Dreeson. Good. Anybody there have a weapon? Hello. Anybody been drinking or doing drugs? No, I do have drugs, yeah. You? Yeah. Do you know what kind? I don't know. And you don't know where he went? No, I don't. But it's the five,
You don't have to mind how like the sun got, because you said it felt good outside yesterday and it was damn cold.
Ms. Jason?
Yes.
Do you recognize that 911 call from you to the officer?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you're saying that that is not you?
It don't sound like me.
Okay, and, okay, thank you. And Ms. Greason, since Anthony Smith has gone into custody, have you spoken to him?
Have I did who?
Since Anthony Smith has become an inmate at the Clayton County Jail, have you talked to him?
Have I talked to his mom?
Have you talked to Anthony Smith?
One time.
One time? I couldn't quite hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. For the record, you're stating that you have spoken to Anthony Smith since he has become an inmate at the Clayton County Jail only one time?
One time.
Okay, thank you. Oh, tell us what your phone number is.
What's who?
Can you tell the court what your telephone number is?
I can't see y'all face. I don't know who I'm talking to.
I'm listening. You need to answer the question as asked to you, Ms. Greason.
Okay, 404.
All right. And Ms. Grayson, so you have not spoken to Anthony Smith any other time but once?
Once.
Okay, and when was that?
I don't recall. I don't know.
Do you remember what month it is? What month?
No, ma'am.
And with regard to, okay, no further questions.
All right. Any cross? Ms. Reddick.
Your Honor, may we, myself and Ms. Jensen, approach?
Sure.
I'm sorry, as well as all the other public defenders, we normally would all walk up to the bench. Can we all join a breakout with Your Honor, Ms. Jensen, please?
Yeah, give me just a second.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, I know we've got the jail present. I'm going to send him to the breakout room to speak with his attorney. Give me just a moment.
Yes, ma'am, I'm clear. I'm standing by.
Hang on, I'm sending him to the wrong one. Hang on. All right, try that one. Thanks. Number 2.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you, Deputy. All right, he's back. Ms. Reddick, you're back. Are we proceeding?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Smith has been advised of.
All right, go ahead. Ms. Greason, if you'll unmute, thank you.
Yes,
All right, go ahead with cross-examination.
Ms. Greason, you indicated to the state that you remember only one phone call from Mr. Smith. Would that have been a call on September 11th, 2020?
Don't remember.
You don't remember, okay. Your state showed you the state showed you a document to try to refresh your recollection of what potentially happened on May 30th. Having had a couple of moments between when you saw that and now, has your memory been refreshed?
No, ma'am.
Okay, do you recall in your 911 call saying that your eyes burned?
Don't remember.
Do you recall any of the people at your house on that day?
What you mean? Do I be calling people at my house that day?
On May 30th, was Mr. Smith at your house?
Earlier that day?
By what time?
I don't remember.
Okay, would you say it was morning, afternoon, or evening?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall ever having any conversations? You indicated on your direct that you and Mrs. Smith got into an argument. You remember what that argument was about?
No.
Okay. Would it help to refresh your memory if I showed you a report that I have about this incident?
Show me who?
A report. Oh, so let me back up.
It's just winter. I can't hear nothing.
I said, what you say?
I can't hear you. You just stopped. You just break up. I ain't heard you.
Hang on. Let's ask the question and then I'll hear if there's an objection. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that an officer may have come to your house on May 30th. You could, right? Correct?
Okay, I'm listening.
That was a question. You indicate, do you recall telling Ms. Jansen on direct that an officer may have come to your house on that day?
Correct.
And you indicated to Ms. Jansen that you might have spoken to that officer on that day. Do you recall saying that?
Correct.
And is it your testimony today that you don't recall what you may have said to that officer?
Correct.
Would it help me to refresh your memory if I showed you a document?
I'm going to object to the form of the question. If she is trying to refresh the recollection, the
proper procedure would be to present a document to her to ask her if she recognizes it.
Overruled. She can ask if it would help refresh her memory. That's the proper foundational. Go ahead, counsel.
Would it help to refresh your memory if I showed you a document, Ms. Greason?
No, ma'am, I don't want to see a document.
Okay. When that officer came to your house, do you recall whether or not the officer spoke to anybody else in the home?
Ma'am, I don't remember. To be honest with you, I do not remember.
And I appreciate that, Ms. Greason, but there's certain things, there's a method to my madness. I have to ask you certain questions first before I can do something different. So I know that you may be getting frustrated, but I have to continue to ask these questions. Do you recall if your 17-year-old daughter spoke to law enforcement that day?
She say she did.
She say she did. You weren't present for that?
No, I stepped inside.
You stepped inside the home?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't hear any of that conversation?
No.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not any of your other children spoke to law enforcement that day?
Yeah.
Do you remember which child that was?
I don't.
Okay. Were you present when they had that conversation, or you were inside?
I was present.
You were present for that conversation with the other child?
Correct.
And would it have been the same officer that you had spoken to?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not it was the same officer your 17-year-old spoke to?
It was two out there, so I don't know which one was spoken to.
Okay. So two officers came to your home, but do you recall if you only spoke to one, or did you speak to two?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall any of the contents of the one phone call Mr. Smith made to you since he's been in jail?
Do I remember the phone conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I don't remember the phone conversation.
Would you say it was in September or August or May? Do you know the month? I'm sorry, Ms. Jansen, did you say something?
Yes, objection asked and answered. Counsel already asked her when the phone call was, the exact date.
Objections overruled. She can ask her. She's got her own cross.
Thank you.
Do you recall which month it may have been in?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay. No additional questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Grayson, I'm going to share the screen again.
Ma'am?
I'm going to show you this one more time. All right, Ms. Grayson, can you see the screen again?
Yes, ma'am, I see the page.
To the bottom where the pointer is, and tell me if that is your signature.
Yes, ma'am, it is
That
my
is
signature.
your signature. All right. Do you recall signing this written statement?
I don't recall.
Okay.
But it's my.
All right. And with regard to this paragraph that you were reading, is that your handwriting?
Don't recall.
So you are able to say that this is your signature in your handwriting at the bottom?
That's my handwriting.
Is that your signature?
That's my signature.
Is your handwriting above that?
That's my
And
handwriting.
do you recall writing this signed statement for the police officer?
I don't remember. That's my signature.
You don't remember what?
I can't hear you, ma'am.
Ms. Jansen, she said, I don't remember, but that's my signature.
I'm going to ask you again, Ms. Gleason, under the handwriting that you just identified in the paragraph, not your signature, but this other writing, you said was your handwriting, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. Ms. Greason has said twice now that that was her handwriting.
She's established that's her handwriting. Next question.
And Ms. Gleason, can you read this statement and tell us if it helps you
What happened
Nope.
that day?
No, ma'am, I don't want to read that statement. I
No,
don't, no.
actually, Your Honor, if the witness can be ordered to read the statement.
Ms. Greason, you need to read that statement silently. You've been asked to do so. You either read it silently, and then if you refuse to do so, I'll entertain any other motion on behalf of the state as it relates to the document.
Read
Yes,
to
ma'am.
myself? Okay, I read it.
Have you read the ma'am?
Say it again?
Ms. Grayson, have you read the entire
Yeah,
statement written?
I read the
And
statement.
does that help you refresh your recollection of what happened that day?
No,
And from reading the contents of this statement, Ms. Friesen, is that what happened that day?
I don't recall.
Let it go, Judge.
All right, any recross based on the redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Greason, you may leave.
Ma'am.
Yes,
Does the state have any further evidence that it would like for me to consider?
Your Honor, the state would like to recall Officer P. Miller.
Give me a moment.
Oh, no.
Officer Miller, I'll remind you that you're under oath and you are back. Go ahead.
Ma'am? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Officer Miller, did you take a written statement from, written signed statement from Pamela Gleason the day of this incident?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you.
Did you take a signed written statement from Pamela Gleason on the date of this incident?
You said something about the.
Did you take a signed written statement?
Oh, yes, I did. I did.
Hang on, we're not going to talk over each other because there's still a court reporter here. I believe that the question was, did you take a signed written statement from Pamela Gleason? Is
Yep.
how I understood it.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and do you recall, did you write, I need to show it to you. This is Exhibit 3, I'm going to share the screen. Can you see the statement, officer?
Yes, that's the signed statement.
Can you be more specific? What is that? How do you know what that is?
That's the signed statement by Ms. Greason that she gave to me the day of the incident.
Okay, and did you, who did the handwriting? Who wrote that statement from top to bottom?
Ms. Greason did.
Is there any place on there that is your handwriting other than your signature?
Excuse me?
Other than your signature and that of the witness, is any of that your handwriting?
Yes, the part where it says officer and name of witness, that's my first initial, last name, and my signature at the bottom.
Okay, other than that, did you write any other part of the statement?
No, I didn't.
Did anybody other than Pamela Gleason write any other part of that statement?
No.
Judge State would ask to tender an evidence, case Exhibit 3.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
And officer, if you can tell the court what the statement said.
I can read it. It's screen shared. I can read the exhibit.
Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Any recross or any cross of this witness based on the questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. May he be excused.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. And I've read the documents, almost read the exhibits, I'm gonna stop the screen sharing. Officer Miller, you can go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further witnesses on behalf of the state?
Judge, Officer Stanley is actually the final witness on the violation.
All right, I'm admitting her. All right, Officer Stanley, if I can have you unmute and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the evidence and testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, may put your hand down. Go ahead.
Officer Stanley, we know you're laying Larry Lumsford.
What did she say? I'm sorry, Judge.
I couldn't understand it.
Officer Stanley,
Let me ask you this, Ms. Jansen, since do you have any further exhibits that you're going to need to share from that computer?
no, Your Honor.
All right, we can take a second if you don't mind switching back because the audio quality is poor on that. We'll wait on you. Thanks.
Yeah, I apologize for that, Judge.
I'm back, Judge.
Much better.
May I proceed, Your Honor? May I proceed?
I can hear you, Laura. I think she's in recess right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, it wouldn't unmute for me. All right, yes, you may proceed. Thanks.
Officer Stanley, what is your occupation?
Community Supervision Office for the Department of Community Supervision.
And in your job as a community supervision officer for probation, do you have in your supervision Anthony Smith?
I do.
All right. And what do you have him on probation for that you're supervising him on?
I can take judicial notice of all of that. I understand what he's on probation for because it's my sentence. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. And did you have an occasion, Officer Stanley, to do a violation of probation petition against Anthony Smith in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the violations for?
Violation of criminal law, failure to pay as ordered, violation of special condition to enroll in and successfully complete family violence, and violation of special condition to not have any contact directly or indirectly with the victim, Pamela Greason.
All right. And with regard to not paying, well, with regard to the new crime, is that the crime which occurred on May 30th, 2020?
Yes, that's the violation of criminal law and also a failure to report as instructed.
Okay. And tell us the nature of the failure to report violation.
He's failed to report the month of May as instructed or any time thereafter, which is now understood because he's been in custody.
Okay. Therefore, do you withdraw that part of the?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And with regard to making payments, what part of the sentence is that and how did he make the violation?
He's currently $605 in arrears and he's only made one payment since being under this sentence. And that payment was March 15th of 2020 in the amount of $60.
Okay. And with regard to the next condition of family violence intervention program?
No proof as of this date has been provided that he's entered or completed that treatment program or any type of family violence course.
And with regard to the payment as well as the family violence and reporting, was the defendant properly advised at the beginning of his probation as to the procedures for him to make the payments as well as to how to enroll in the family violence intervention program?
Per my notes, yes. And we all enter our notes into one portal system. So I have access to whatever notes his officer enters. So from me reviewing his case for this revocation hearing, I see no notes that he's provided proof or a certificate of completion. I did review his financials and see that he's made one payment. We're not going to go forth on a failure to report, so I won't even discuss that.
Thank you. And with regard to the Family Violence Intervention Program, were you able to determine whether he's taken any classes or
Not from the notes I reviewed.
okay. And if he had taken any portion of those classes, would you?
You froze, Ms. Jansen.
Okay. If he had in fact done any partial completion of the Family Violence Intervention Program, would you have noted that in due course?
Yes, his officer would have noted it, or either, I'm sorry. If he completed and provided a certificate, it would have been uploaded in the portal so that I can review it. And I didn't see any of that information, nor did I see any notes of him completing the course.
All right. And with regard to the no contact provision, what is that based on?
His court order from what he's on probation for. The court order and the special conditions directly noted that he's not to have any contact directly or indirectly with the victim, Pamela Greason. And from the new criminal offense, it's the same victim. And as well as he's also made contact on numerous occasions since his incarceration via phone or text messages from the Clayton County Jail to this same victim in which he was ordered to not have any contact with.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Officer Stanley, when was your petition taken out?
Ms. Reddick, I've served him with 3 petitions, and let me explain why. The first one had another inmate's information on it, so I amended that petition to include his information. And that petition was done he was served with that one in which he signed on September 17th. I just recently, he was served another petition that was amended since receiving the receipts of the jail phone calls, in which he signed on October 1st. And that was to add the phone calls because I wasn't aware that he was still making contact directly or indirectly with the victim in this case.
So on September 17th, what was the alleged violations beyond? What is the difference between the September 17th and the September 20th? You added a violation for the in-custody calls?
Yes.
Was there a violation still of the no contact provision on the September 17th one?
Yes.
And would that have been the allegation of the new charges, based on the new charges? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you at any point speak to Ms. Greason to determine whether or not she was initiating contact with Mr. Smith?
I have not spoke with the victim in this case.
Okay. Okay. With regard to the money that's outstanding, approximately $605 in arrears, does any of those months cover the time Mr. Smith has been in incarceration?
No, he hasn't made a payment since March 15th of 2020. He wasn't in custody at that time.
But he's been in custody since May. So from March to April to May, it's the 605 was those 3 months?
No, the 605 is since he was sentenced in 2019 with probation fees and court costs.
Was he paying up until March of 2020?
No. He's only made that one payment since sentencing.
Oh, so he didn't do anything in 19. He did the one in 2020, and then he hasn't done anything else.
Yes.
Okay. Prior to being arrested, was he compliant with reporting?
No, ma'am. He hadn't. Actually, he last reported March 10th, 2020.
Okay. And with regard to the Family Violence Intervention Program, you weren't his direct supervising. Your Honor, may I have a brief breakout room with Mr. Smith? He keeps raising his hand in court.
Sure.
Thank you, Judge.
Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead with your questions of Ms. Stanley.
Officer Stanley, was Mr. Smith on 90-day report cycle?
90-day report. I'm not for sure if he was on that. The way it works is depending on his level of supervision, they are to make contact with him. So whether it was 90-day, 120-day, if they gave him instructions to report, and him instructions to report or gave him some type of instructions as far as his probation.
Okay, well, do you see that Mr. Smith reported in September of 2019?
Hold on. September 6th, yes.
Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter. You withdrew the failure to report.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
apologize. Would your system show whether or not Mr. Smith attempted to attend the family violence classes? Does it show that he let his officer know he signed up for the class and was just not able to complete?
Hold on, I lost you on my screen, Miss Ready. Okay, here we go. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Are you able to tell in your system that whether or not Mr. Smith in fact enrolled in the class and advised his officer that he enrolled in the class, the family violence intervention class?
After reading through all the notes, I see no notes of that, Miss Reddick, and the violations that he failed to show proof of enrolling and completing. So even if he enrolled, they give you levels of progress reports. So we would have received even a letter saying that he completed his evaluation and told us about the treatment. I see no notes or no proof of that being done.
No additional questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect? No.
Can't hear you, Laura.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Yes.
Yes, Your
Any
Honor.
objection? All right, you may go, Ms. Stanley. Thank you. Any further evidence on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor, the state rests.
All right. Any evidence on behalf of the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Any closing argument on behalf of either party?
Your Honor, the state would submit that, as we stated in the opening statement, where we would expect the evidence to show the defendant is on probation. He was on probation when he committed the new offense, which we have shown and proven through preponderance of the evidence on or about May 30th, 2020, pouring gasoline on the victim, Pamela Greason, in spite of her testimony during which she was impeached. The officer did testify. The 911 call corroborates, as well as the victim's statement shows that the defendant did commit the offense of aggravated assault by pouring gasoline on the victim and threatening to catch her on fire. As well as the presence of 3 children, Your Honor, and that would be cruelty to children in the 3rd degree. With regard to the contact, no contact provision is part of the sentence that he's on probation for. He, of course, since this is the very same victim as in the sentence, Pamela Greason, that he committed this crime against, clearly that is a violation of the no contact. But the glaring element is also I believe, at least 358 phone calls that have been shown to the court from the defendant to the victim. I realized that the audio went bad, and
So I've heard the evidence by the state. If the state is seeking, if it feels that it needs to reopen, so then we can reassess for her to go have her client hear in total those phone calls, we can do that. If the state wishes to submit on the evidence that's presented, I will consider that. But at this point, because the defendant has not had the opportunity, through no fault of anyone, to fully hear those phone calls, that does not factor into the decision. What's the state? I understand the existence of them. Go ahead.
Okay, the state, Your Honor, will submit on that evidence. And with regard to the further violations, Officer Stanley has stated all the details of those conditions, and from her notes, these are violations as well, and the state would recommend a full revocation of the remainder of the time.
All right, closing on behalf of the defendant.
Yes, Your Honor. The state referenced 300 plus phone calls. I don't believe that's in evidence before the court, but I believe that was before the court, but that state has submitted onward 3 phone calls in particular. The court is not going to consider those. I'm
not going to consider the contents. I'm going to consider the fact that the phone calls were made and the number that was testified to and any evidence thereof. I'm not going to consider the contents because of his inability to hear the contents of that.
Yes, Your Honor. And we would assert that in light of the testimony of Ms. Greason, Unfortunately, one phone call is enough. We acknowledge that she indicated one phone call from the client. We would ask, Your Honor, that the one phone call not be extremely detrimental to Mr. Smith to the point where he is revoked for 3 years. You heard Ms. Greason at least admit that they have a child together. I argue that the call was to check on the child, although I couldn't get that evidence out. And I acknowledge that through Ms. Greason because she wouldn't answer any questions. So at this point, Your Honor, we would ask that you not violate Mr. Smith and revoke the balance of his sentence. We would ask the court to show some leniency to Mr. Smith in regards to his probation revocation and not revoke. Mr. Smith would like me to request that he be given time served and reinstated on probation.
All right, I will find by preponderance of the evidence based on the written statement that the victim submitted, along with the 911 call and the officer's testimony, along with the evidence in total, that you have violated your probation in all the manners alleged. The phone calls from the jail are one thing, sir. The pouring, what I've heard about pouring gasoline on on the victim is simply another. So to me, to judge credibility, I'm going to revoke the balance of your probation and close your case. You can go back.
Boom. Bye.
Thank you for every morning. I hope all of you have a good weekend. If there's nothing further, we'll stand in recess.
So what do y'all think? I know it was a little bit of a struggle bus there with the attorney trying to get her little Zoom thing done. And I don't know, I thought it was interesting. This case was a little different than our normal little Zoom courts. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like this video, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so YouTube can notify you the next time I upload a video. Everyone have a blessed evening, and I will talk to you very soon.